गुरु प्यारी साध संगत जी, वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह। अज असी इत्थे बर्मिंघम सिटी काउंसल दे मोहरे विक्टोरिया स्क्वेयर ते चैंबरलेन स्क्वेयर ते हाँ, जिथे कि हैलोकॉस्ट जो इंडिया दे विच कतलेआम करवाया गया सी इंडिया गवर्नमेंट तो, जां उन्हां दे जो सारे सपोर्टर सी जिन्हां ने कीता सी सिखां दा कतलेआम, उन्हां दी याद दे विच 28 साल हो गए। अज ताईं किसी ने भी कोई ऐसो जिहा कदम नहीं चक्या कि वह कतलेआम करने वाले नूं सजावां मिल जाण। 28 साल हो गए, दुनिया 'च ऐसी मिसाल नहीं मिलती। जलियांवाले बाग दे विच भी जदों जनरल डायर ने यह कतलेआम किया सी, इत्थे दी यूके दी गवर्नमेंट ने उन्होंने सद के कोर्ट मार्शल किया सीगा, पर हिंदुस्तान दे विच कोई इंसाफ की गल नहीं। इत्थे दे सिख संगतां वल्लों स्पैशली नौजवान बच्चों वल्लों ये प्रोग्राम नूं मोहरे होकर किया जांदा सी ते पिछे होकर इन्हें सपोर्ट करते हाँ। बहुत वधिया जो गाहां जो ये बच्चे कुछ बाद च जमे जां पहलां छोटे छोटे से अज जवान होए, उन्हां दे मनां दे विच ओह दर्द आ कि साडे अपणियां दा कतलेआम सो कॉल्ड ओह बिगेस्ट डेमोक्रेसी इंडिया दे विच इह कीता गया, जिहनूं कहंदे आज़ाद भारत नहीं, आज़ाद नहीं है, वो घट गिणतियां दी आज़ादी उत्थे नहीं है। असीं ये प्रोग्राम नूं आप ते ये पेश करने जिहड़ा कि अज 3 नवंबर 2012 में हो रहा है। Today we have our Honourable MP John Spiller from Sangat, West Midlands, UK. He's with us. We're going to ask him what sort of the justice he thinks in India, because the people are responsible for Holocaust killing the Sikhs and 1,000 people. So far, Indian government haven't taken them to the court of justice. John, what do you think about it?
Well, I think today's event, along with many others, unfortunately, which we're still having to hold nearly 30 years since the atrocities took place, shows the very deep pain that is still felt in the Sikh community. And not just for those who were killed, but those whose families were torn apart. And also, in many ways, I think almost the worst cases, those where people disappeared and no one still knows what's happened to them. And I think that still hasn't been resolved. I think there's got to be justice for those people, and the Indian government have to take that call very seriously, because it's quite clear the Sikh community, not just in Punjab, but here in Birmingham and the Black Country, and indeed right the way across the world, still feel this pain and will still be campaigning until justice is done.
John, it is the 28th year. In Australia, some AP taking onto the board, they're going to be take this matter to the Australian Parliament to discuss, to recognize this is the Holocaust. Would our MP, including yourself, do in this country?
I don't have a look at that, because I'm always very careful with the word Holocaust, because it applies to a particular event when the Nazi regime in Germany tried to completely eliminate the Jewish race from the earth. And that doesn't, and I think so, if we get into an argument about words and terms, then that might divert attention from the very real hurt and the very real outrage that took place, which was tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands, of Sikhs who were seriously injured and indeed killed, not just during those outrages, but leading up to that period and indeed subsequently, particularly during the period of the emergency. And I really think we ought to be focusing on that demand for justice rather than maybe getting into an argument as to the meaning of words.
Okay, John, but okay, let us see how would you be able to help to force the Indian government to take those people are responsible for these things and take them for court of justice. So far they haven't.
Yeah.
How would you do it?
Well, as you know, we've been campaigning very strongly on these issues, raising this with the British government, asking them to raise this with the Indian government. Also campaigning in some of the cases that are taking place at the moment. A big campaign earlier this year in order to ensure that the death penalty wasn't executed on people in India. But it's absolutely right. We've still got to keep up the campaign for trying to bring those who were responsible for the outrages that took place, for the deaths and disappearances, and to put continuing pressure on the Indian government to bring those people to justice.
Thank you, John. But other thing I want to be bringing your attention, if anybody, especially from the Sikh community, to raise their voice, here in this country, when they try to go back to visit their beloved one or their family or their, the Sikh Shrine, and the Indian government, they make a problem for them, harass them or they take them, in custody, they torture them or threat them, not to do that. What would you say that?
Well, I think this is extremely bad, and I know that there has been a real concern in the community here over the last year or so, in particular, at what is seen as a recent crackdown by the Indian government, and a very real sense of fear and apprehension as to whether there's a danger of going back to the period of the emergency when people were killed, there were fake encounters, people were shot trying to escape, and some people were snatched off the street and just disappeared. There is a very real concern on that. I think the pressure from the UK and from other countries has indeed led to some pulling back, but there is still problems there. There are still people being subjected to arbitrary arrest, and we just have to keep campaigning. And what we do know from campaigns, for example, that have been organised by Amnesty International, is that regimes do listen to those voices. Those voices even get heard inside the prisons, and they do respond. And if people are taking up the cases, if people are putting the pressure on, it isn't just wasted. It is enormously important that those campaigns continue, and hopefully one day will succeed.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Just coming to share your, the feelings like on that Candlelight Vigil on 3rd of November. It's Councillor Jagjeet Singh, Atwal, Sangat TV.
Hello, Michael. Hi. You seen the photographs.
Yeah.
What's your opinion by watching these pictures?
My opinion is that it's very, very heart-wrenching. I didn't know this was going on in this day and age. As I said, I didn't know much about it with the whole system that's going on. I'm quite shocked by it, to be honest. Very, very shocked by it.
You know, when you hear watch TV or read the newspapers, and you think India is the biggest democracy in the world, did you ever imagine this sort of thing could happen in India in 1980s?
As I said earlier, that this happened in 1984, so it's not that far away, and I didn't really think that this would happen at all in this day and age. With all the modern technology, this is still going on in India. As I said earlier, it's very, very heart-wrenching. I didn't know much about it myself until I came to this exhibition, and to make it more aware of what's going on.
So after watching these photographs, so what are you going to do about it?
It's made me more aware. Maybe I'll maybe look at making some of the school the kids that I teach, maybe make them more aware. Do it as a one-off lesson.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਭਾਈ ਪਰਮਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁੱਤੇ ਅਦਜਲੀਆਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਦਜਲੀਆਂ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਰੁਲਦੀਆਂ ਫਿਰਦੀਆਂ, ਤੇ ਅਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੌਮ ਨੂੰ ਇਹਦਾ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਪ੍ਰਗਟ ਕਰੋ ਜੀ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀਆਂ, ਇਹ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੀਆਂ। ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚੱਕਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੌਮ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਹੋਵੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਦੇ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ। ਜੇ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨਾ ਚੱਕਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ, ਛੇਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਇਹੋ ਯੁੱਧ ਲੜਨੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ। ਕਿਉਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਕਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਹਾਕਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੇਣਾ, ਜੇ ਉਹੀ ਜ਼ਾਲਮ ਹੋਣ ਤਾਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਲੈਣਾ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਆ? ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਹਜੇ ਸਮਝ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਆ ਵੀ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਕਿਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ। ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਾਰਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਇਹ ਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ। ਦੂਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਇਹ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਦੋਂ ਮਿਲੂਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਰਾਜ ਭਾਗ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿੱਦਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਜਿੱਦਣ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ। ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਜੂਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਜ਼ੀ ਉਦੋਂ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਤੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਪੁੱਛਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਰਾਜ ਭਾਗ ਆ ਗਿਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨਿਆਂ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇੱਥੇ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ 'ਚੋਂ ਵੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਕ ਕੇ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁੱਟਿਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਜ ਭਾਗ ਸੀ। ਰਾਜ ਭਾਗ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ ਪਾਵਰ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਦੁਰਦਸ਼ਾ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ। ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਮੰਗ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਮਿਲੇ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਮਿਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਹਾ। ਇਨਸਾਫ ਉਦੋਂ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਰਾਜ ਭਾਗ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਦੂਸਰੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਸਿੱਖ ਕੌਮ ਨੂੰ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੱਕਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਣਾ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਆ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਥਾਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਉਹੀ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਵਿਰੋਧ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਹਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਤਰ ਹੋ ਕੇ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਲੋਕ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ 'ਤੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਲੌਬੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਇੱਕ ਬੰਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ ਸਾਧਦੇ, ਦੂਸਰੇ ਬੰਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਗਾ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਸਾੜਦੇ ਆ। ਜਿੱਦਣ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੀ ਗੌਰਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਯੂਰਪੀਅਨ ਯੂਨੀਅਨ 'ਚ ਦੱਸ ਗਏ, ਇਹ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਉਦਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਆਸ ਵੱਝ ਸਕਦੀ।
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Today we're gathered here in Chamberlain Square in Birmingham to commemorate many lost souls who lost their lives, who were brutally massacred, not by a bunch of bandits, not by a bunch of rebels. They were massacred by the police, by the Delhi police. They were massacred by organised mobs of the Congress party. Now, in a country that can organise mass killing of innocent people we don't expect much justice. What we do expect, though, is that the international community who talk about human rights and civil rights, for them to make this, raise awareness about this genocide. So we're hoping that in this exhibition, in this program today, people who aren't connected with the Sikh community come to realize that we aren't living in a peaceful state in India. For the past 25 to 30 years, we've been butchered systematically, but nothing's been done. No culprits have been brought to justice, and the victims are languishing, many with the horrifying memories of what they've had to endure in the past 30 years. So we're hoping today to raise awareness. Not to raise awareness, we're hoping to light candles as well. And the whole point of lighting a candle isn't the physical element of just lighting a candle in memory. In our history, Sardar Jaswant Singh Khalra famously said that even if you light one candle, it can battle a lot of darkness. So we're hoping not only do we commemorate those by lighting a candle, we pledge to fight for the justice for those people who can't fight for themselves. And we're hoping that today, not only will it raise a lot of awareness, it will bring people on board to fight for justice. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Petrol was sprinkled on him and set on fire.
He was set on fire. Why?
Because he is a Sardaji. Yes, a Sikh.
Majority community in India, they had picked on the Sikhs, start killing them left, right and center. That was in capital Delhi.
Right.
And 5 to 10,000 people, that's what government figures, but our figures are many times more than that. And people who killed these people, if you see the photograph there, even the dogs are eating bodies. Half-burned bodies, and nobody was prosecuted. Even till today, nobody's been prosecuted or sent to prison for these crimes.
So does Sikhs not have an influence in Indian politics?
No.
Don't have any
Well,
sort of...
we have Sikhs in India. We are very small minority in India. And when it comes to the minorities in India, we don't get justice as the majority communities do. Now, for last 28 years, we were asking for those people to be prosecuted who were responsible for the killings. And even till today, nobody's been prosecuted.
And is it still going on today then?
Yeah, it's still going on today. And the world outside now, they think India is biggest democracy. But when it comes to minorities, it happens to all the minorities, not just the Sikhs. It happens to Muslims and Christians in India.
So you consider yourself a minority in India?
We are very small minority in India, and we trying to let the world know what is going on. So, what is your opinion about India after watching this and learning what
surprised, I'm really shocked.
I thought that the Sikh presence was much higher than a couple of percent. I thought it was more like 15, 20%. So I didn't know it was just
0.2.
Are they distributed right across India, or is it in particular?
We're only 2% all across the world.
Oh right.
We are 2% in India.
Yeah.
But we are very small minority.
Yeah.
We have the second biggest community of Sikhs in UK after India.
Yeah.
So.
And do you find that the prejudice over in India is prevalent here? In Birmingham, within
we're
the
just trying to convince the governments in the West. We're just trying to convince the governments of the West and letting the world know what is happening to us in India.
ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮੈਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਪੰਥਕ ਦਲ UK ਵੱਲੋਂ ਜਥੇਬਾਨੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਭਾਈ ਜਸਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਮੂਹ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਦੇ ਫੁੱਲ ਭੇਟ ਕਰਦਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਿਰਦੋਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਵੀ 1984 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਤਲੇਆਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਮਿਡਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਇਸ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਸਲ ਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਂਡਲ ਲਾਈਟ ਵਿਜਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਸਲ ਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਜੂਨ 1984 ਦਾ ਜੋ ਸਾਲ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਮਾਨਸਿਕਤਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਡੂੰਘੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਸਲ ਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਰ੍ਹੇ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਚਾਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਤੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਭੁੱਲ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਚਾਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਰਤਮਾਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਵਿਚਾਰਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਔਰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਜੂਨ 1984 ਦਾ ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਸਲ ਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਦਾ ਵਰ੍ਹਾ ਸੀ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵਿਚਾਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੁਨਹਿਰੀ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਦੀ ਸਿਰਜਣਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਸੋਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਡੂੰਘੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿੱਖ ਮਾਨਸਿਕਤਾ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਯਾਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਕਾਤਲ ਹਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਯੋਜਨਾਬੱਧ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੂਰੀ ਪਲਾਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਤਲੇਆਮ ਕੀਤਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਦੋਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਖਤ ਸਜ਼ਾਵਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਣ। ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਆਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਲਈ ਲੜਨਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਭਾਣਾ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਨਾ ਵਾਪਰੇ, ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਨਸਲ ਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਇਹਦੇ ਸਦੀਵ ਹੱਲ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੋਚ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਔਰ ਜੋ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੌਮੀ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨਾ ਹੈ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਵੀ ਵਧਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ।
Blood for blood. Sikhon ka gaddar, kill the Sikhs. Even more crowds gather. The most sinister thing was that these chants were allowed to be broadcast on All India Radio and Doordarshan TV. Kill the Sikhs on national radio, on national TV. On that same night, at the house of Rampal Saroj, a senior Congress legislator, more than 30 congressmen sat in his living room, and in a cool, calm, orderly manner, they sat with paper and pens and discussed how they can rape, murder, pillage, and loot as many Sikhs as they can in 4 days. So they set about their task. This was no spontaneous, frenzied, communal orgy of violence. The way this was planned, the way it was executed, the systematic nature of November 1984 is chilling. We're looking at these pictures now. Let's go into some figures. Official figures from Delhi suggest that after all this pre-planning, after all this systematic and deliberate planning, 2,733 Sikhs were killed. Men, women, children. INSAF, a human rights organization, suggests that this figure can be doubled, if not tripled, because it doesn't consider those Sikhs that were killed in trains, in lorries, in buses, taxis. INSAF suggests that even if you say 5,000 innocent Sikhs were butchered in Delhi, it's still an underestimation. If we say 1,500 widows were created in Delhi, November 1984, is still an underestimation. If we say 4,000 orphans were created in November 1984, it's still an underestimation.
So alone, consumed by my hate, and now my heart's turning stone. So many tears as I face all my fears. Feeling the pain now for 28 years, and I can't take more of this thing they call life. My thoughts kill my brain like the cuts from a knife. And still I try and put my memories aside. Cause when I think it's like mental suicide. No matter what I do, I can't stop feeling sad. Even when I think of good times that we had. Happier than anyone would have guessed. A normal family sharing the love, we were blessed, yo. My husband never stepped on the war scene. He didn't want to leave our daughter who was 14. He always said she was the light of his world. I love her so much, but she was always daddy's girl. This was it, the life we enjoyed. All of a sudden, though, our dreams were destroyed. The one night, yo, we just heard the news. We didn't understand, got a little confused. Cause they were saying that we broke their trust and they were gonna come around killing people like us. And then it happened, the sound hit my ear of people crying outside with pain and fear. My husband got his gun from the drawer. He said stay calm while he checked all the doors. But then we found that it was too late. The men already ran in through the front gate with matches, petrol and bars of metal. We weren't even part of the fight that they wanted to settle. My husband protected us as he would. He loaded up his gun and shot as many as he could. Trying to get his family out of the submission with just 6 bullets as his total ammunition. Fired his last and I hear what he said. He told me and my daughter to go hide under the bed. But I was shook, I couldn't move when I tried. Told my daughter that I loved her and she had to go and hide. I saw my husband when he dropped his revolver, hitting the floor when he got shot in the shoulder. And even when they start to kick him on the ground, he stresses about us as he tries to look around. And this is when I feel my heart begin to rot. I start screaming and I'm begging him to stop. But then his bug, yo, they started to remove. Tied his hands behind his back with it so that he couldn't move. Shouting at him as they hold him in the corner. Tell your woman to shut up, you better warn her. Cause if you don't, yo, we're all gonna make her. When we beat her to the ground and we rape her. But then one man came across and he said, look who I found hiding underneath the bed. We'll go ahead and rape their daughter instead. My husband cries out and I'm wishing I was dead. I try and move but they hold me from my neck, forcing me to see my world turn into a wreck. My daughter shouts out for us as she knows what's gonna happen next when they're ripping off her clothes. And when they finish, yo, they reach for the can of petrol to do what came next on the plan. Emptied the can onto a tire, put it round my husband's neck and then they lit it on fire. We weren't even part of their sick little games. We're made to stand by as we watched him in flames. I kept wishing that I was just dreaming and in any minute I'd be waking up screaming. But he was dead and it was all too late. The men just walk away as they reach for the gate. My daughter stands there crying as we're stunned. I'm screaming as I hold the burnt body of my husband. They knew exactly what they put us through, and that's why they didn't throw me and my daughter on the fire too, so that we'd have to live the rest of our lives suffering until finally death arrives. So that was it, and now my world's in a state. The government is saying that they're gonna compensate, but yo, how can they fix it with paper when my daughter still walks past the people that had raped her? Plus the money that they gave, how was that enough to get us by? Now we're on the streets living rough. So now we're homeless, helpless and soulless. But the flames in my mind still burn in the coldness. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I would like to tell the whole of the world what Sikhs actually went through 28 years ago in 1984. It was a Sikh genocide, a Sikh Holocaust, which was actually carried out by the government of India on the innocent people who done nothing wrong. and they were burnt alive, women were raped, children were killed, and we have come to Birmingham in Victoria Square to remember all those who's given their lives for us. What for? What do the Sikhs want? We want a justice. We want justice from India. 28 years we've been waiting for justice, and the people who carried out these atrocities are walking free, and they have been given a highest post in the governments just to make sure they can be pleased. But what we want, the Sikhs want justice. They want justice to make sure that we can remember all those who have given their life. And it has been the 30 years. It was a Sikh genocide. So we want to remember them by lighting a candle in the memory of those who given their life for us.
खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह। प्यारे खालसा जीओ, 1984 का जोड़ा मैसीकर सिखां का दिल्ली विखे हरमंदिर साहब ढाउणा, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦਾਸ ਸਮੂਹ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੋਏ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਬੇਇਨਸਾਫੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਹਨ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਮਨੁੱਖਤਾ ਦਾ ਕਤਲ ਆ। ਸਹਿਬ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਹਮ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਨਾ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਅੱਲਾ ਰਾਮ ਕੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਪ੍ਰਾਣ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਤਰ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਭਲਾਈ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਾਪਰ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਲੈਣ ਨੂੰ ਸਮੂਹ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਮੁੱਠ ਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਇਨਸਾਫ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰ ਤੋਂ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈ। ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਮਾਈ ਭਾਈ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਤਲ ਕੇਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਉਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਹਨ। ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਲਾਈ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਮੂਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਦਾ ਇਹ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਤਤਪਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। November 1984. A boy runs in the streets of Delhi. Ye saap ka bacha hai, isnu vi maro, yells the mob. This is also a child of a snake, catch him. That poor little boy was thrown on top of his father. They were both burnt alive. 28 years on, we come here today to remember the tens and thousands of Sikhs that were killed innocently. Men beaten, our sisters systematically raped, stripped naked in front of their children, in front of their husbands, and children brutally killed. Yet the police did nothing. They stayed silent, they watched, they joined in. These are incidents of human rights and genocide, and yet we are no closer to justice. In the absence of justice, the least the country can do is build a memorial to honour the memory of those victims who were simply killed because of religion. As we sleep tonight, I urge us all to think for 5 minutes, just to think about those brothers and those sisters who were killed innocently. The question is, what are we going to do as a nation? What is our action? What is our plan of action? Are we going to sit quietly, or are we going to roar like those lions that Guru Gobind Singh Ji has made us? When will justice prevail? That's in our hands. Never forget 1984. ਪ੍ਰਣਾਮ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਾਨ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਲਈ ਕੁਰਬਾਨ ਕੀਤੀ। God, you're always in our hearts. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।